ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Indigo's conference call to discuss the first quarter fiscal year 2022 financial results. My name is Janice and I will be your coordinator. At this time, the participants are in listen-only mode. A question and answer session will follow today's management's discussion. As a reminder, today's conference call is being recorded. I would now like to turn the conference over to the moderator, Mr. Ankur Goel, Head of Investor Relations for Indigo. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the first quarter fiscal year 2022 earnings call. We have with us our Chief Executive Officer, Rono Dutta, and our Chief Financial Officer, Jiten Chopra, to take you through our performance for the quarter. Wolfgang Prock-Schauer, our Chief Operating Officer, and Sanjay Kumar, our Chief Strategy and Revenue Officer, are also with us and are available for the Q&A session. Before we begin, please note that today's discussion may contain certain statements on our business or financials which may be construed as forward-looking. Our actual results may be materially different from these forward-looking statements. The information provided on this call is as of today's date, and we undertake no obligation to update the information subsequently. A transcript of today's call will also be archived on our website. We will upload the transcript of today's prepared remarks shortly. The transcript of the Q&A session will be uploaded subsequently. With this, let me hand over the call to Rono Dutta.
Thank you, Ankur. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the call. Hope all of you are safe and doing well. We announced our first quarter fiscal 2022 financial results today. We reported a net loss of 31.7 billion rupees for the quarter ending June, as compared to a net loss of 11.5 billion rupees for March quarter of fiscal 2021 and 28.4 billion rupees for the June quarter last year. Needless to say, we are deeply disappointed by these results. Last year for the June quarter, we had reported a net loss of 28.4 billion rupees, and this year we have a loss of 31.7 billion rupees. Let me first explain the reason for the higher loss. 2.9 billion rupees was due to the foreign exchange losses, and 1.5 billion rupees pertained to lower finance income. Without these two non-operational items, our losses would have been roughly the same. The next question, of course, is that given we had around 9.1 billion higher ASKs, why could we not generate more positive contribution from this additional flying year over year? Fuel, unfortunately, was a big negative driver, and our year-over-year fuel costs, adjusted for overall capacity, impacted us by 5.4 billion rupees. You will, of course, be aware that year-over-year fuel price has doubled. The second large factor was the severe impact that the COVID second wave had on our revenues in this quarter. The best way to illustrate this COVID impact is by reading out to you a monthly revenue performance for the period April through July. April revenue was 15.4 billion rupees. May was 6.7 billion rupees. And June was 9.6 billion rupees. And July is projected to recover back to April levels. Sequentially, our CASK for the June quarter increased by 43.7% compared to the March quarter on account of higher fuel price, rupee depreciation, and 41.5% lower capacity deployment. Our cash burn also increased from an average of 190 million rupees per day in the March quarter to an average of 334 million rupees per day in the June quarter because of lower demand and lower capacity deployment. Unfortunately, with the second wave, we faced similar challenges as we did last year and had no option but to reinstate leave without pay for our employees. On the cash side, we continue to look at ways to bolster our balance sheet through various sources of funds and have also obtained shareholder approval to raise up to 30 billion rupees through QIP. We ended the quarter with a free cash of 56.2 billion rupees. In the near term, our primary focus remains on adding capacity so that we can get back to pre-COVID levels as quickly as possible. Currently, we are restricted to 65% capacity deployment, but we are in continuous dialogue with the ministry, and we are hopeful that we will see a gradual relaxation of these restrictions. Of course, the additional capacity will have to be tempered by the reality of COVID-impacted demand, so that we are always covering our variable costs and generating cash to cover the fixed costs. Scheduled international operations remain challenging, and our short-term focus is on increasing the capacity deployed through air bubble arrangements and charters. As we have reiterated throughout the pandemic, our focus is to manage our cash levels, improve our cost structure, run a high-quality airline with highly engaged employees, and position ourselves for the future. The core to our business remains our customer service. Some of the key accomplishments during the quarter are: number one, globally, IndiGo was ranked as the third most punctual airline by OAG ranking for January through June. Domestically, we have been ranked as number one in OTP consistently for the past 4 quarters. Our customer complaint rates in the June quarter were the lowest at 0.1 complaints per 1,000 passengers, as compared to the rest of the industry average of 1.09 per 1,000 passengers. We have been felicitated as India's best place to work in transportation by Great Place to Work Institute. While the impact of the COVID second wave has been severe on both the income statement and our cash flow, we are pleased to see that as COVID numbers decline, travel revenue also rebounds quickly. This has obviously been a very bad quarter, and the key question in investors' mind must be, when do we start seeing light at the end of the tunnel? Given the vaccination rates, a reasonable scenario is that the third wave will be relatively flat, and as such, we hope to be at 100% of pre-COVID domestic capacity by the end of the year, after which we can hope to return to normalcy on revenue. And with that, let me hand over the call to our CFO, Jiten Chopra.
Thank you, Rono, and good evening to everyone. Hope all of you are safe and doing well. For the quarter ended June 2021, we reported a net loss of 31.7 billion rupees compared to a net loss of 11.5 billion rupees for the quarter ended 30 March 21. We reported a negative EBITDA of 13.6 billion rupees compared to an EBITDA of 6.5 billion rupees in the quarter ending March 21. In the March quarter, we operated at 75% of pre-COVID capacity, but during the June quarter, we operated at only 44% of pre-COVID capacity. Such lower capacity deployment has negatively impacted our performance matrices. Some of the key variations from March quarter are: we operated at a load factor of 58.7%, a reduction of 11.4 points. Our RASK reduced by 16.4%, primarily driven by reduction in our load factors by 11.4 points and reduction in our yields by 5.7% to 3.48 rupees. Our fuel CASK increased by 8.5% compared to a 12% increase in average ATF prices on a sequential basis. Our CASK ex-fuel increased by 56%. The update on our cash position is as follows. We ended the March quarter with a free cash of 71 billion rupees. On average, net cash burn during the quarter was 334 million rupees per day. At the end of March quarter, we had announced liquidity initiatives aggregating INR 45 billion rupees. Further, in the June quarter, we were able to secure additional liquidity of 10 billion rupees, taking the total initiative to 55 billion rupees for the year. Of this, we infused 14 billion rupees during the quarter. We are also in discussion with various lenders to further enhance our liquidity position. Additionally, we continue to work with our various partners to secure favorable credit line terms. We ended the June quarter with a free cash of 56.2 billion rupees and a total cash of 170.7 billion rupees. On other key balance sheet numbers, we ended the quarter with a capitalized operating lease liability of 259.3 billion rupees and total debt, including the capitalized operating lease liability of 316.9 billion rupees. The strength of our balance sheet is our biggest defense in the fight against COVID-19, and we will continue to enhance this strength by focusing on cost reduction, liquidity enhancement, and capacity addition. With this, let me hand it back to Ankur.
Thank you, Rono and Jiten. To answer as many questions as possible, I would like to request that each participant limit themselves to one question and one brief follow-up if needed. And with that, we are ready for the Q&A.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. An operator will take your name and announce your turn in the queue. Participants are requested to only use handset while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. We take the first question from the line of Amit Shah from BNP Paribas. Please go ahead.
Was the reason for the loss was 2.9 billion due to FX, and the other 1.5 billion was because of
lower interest income.
And also for July, what is the revenue trending at? I missed that number.
Like we said, we gave you the April number, and then we said July looks like it will be similar to April.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure.
The next question is from the line of Binay Singh from Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
Hi team, thanks for the opportunity. Actually had two questions. Firstly, on the quarter, we've seen increase in staff costs. Could you talk a little bit about that on a sequential basis? Along with that, we've also seen ancillary revenues as a percentage of revenues go up. So any sort of a one-off or anything on that? And secondly, any outlook on the second quarter? Typically, we see that Q2 is the weakest quarter in every financial year. So this time, as things are opening up, crude prices are high, are airlines able to pass on the crude pressure, or yields are actually trending down? If you could comment on that. Thanks.
Yes. So regarding the seasonality, we think COVID has sort of trumped seasonality by a big factor. So really it depends on how COVID is performing. And as you know, COVID has, the numbers are coming down. They're stalled at about 40,000 cases a day. We hope they continue to drop. So really we think that seasonality will be a factor once we get back to normal, but not for now. Now, to the other question of staff costs, part of it has to do with mostly driven by pilot costs. What we're doing with pilot training, where we're holding people. As you know, we had a lot of people coming in from other airlines, and they were in training for a long time. Now they're coming out of training, and there's a little bit of cost increase because of that. Those were your two questions, I think, seasonality and staff costs.
And also on the ancillary revenue, like if I look at the ancillary revenue for the quarter, it's only 26% below your best ancillary run rate. So what's happening there?
Ancillary is actually doing well in terms of cargo. So when you're comparing it to which quarter, how are you saying 26% less?
Or if you could just share the cargo number within that, that how much will be cargo now for you versus same quarter last year, or something on that front.
So ancillary revenue number is actually not less. If you look at the capacity, which is, I'm sure you're looking at sequentially, right? And if you look at sequentially, our cargo numbers has stand pretty much the same as last quarter. And in fact, some of our ancillary revenues like cancellation, etc., has been steady for the quarter. So if you look at from a capacity perspective, though our capacity has fallen from last quarter, but we're still holding on good on the ancillary revenue because of cargo and these and other initiatives.
Okay, thanks. I'll come back in the queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Varun Ginodia from Ambit Capital. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving an opportunity. I have two questions. One is on the yield side. So passenger yields, they fell sequentially despite fare bands in place and government also increasing the lower end of the fare bands in the month of June. So if you can throw some color there, what were the drivers behind lower passenger yields? And the second question is on the lease rental side. That number, looks to be much higher compared to the activity that we did in 1Q FY22. So if you see 2Q FY21 was a year where we posted similar revenue, but the lease rentals were much lower. Plus we also had disposals of CO happening in this quarter. So why this number appears to be high on the higher side? So if you can just give your thoughts on these two.
So first on the yield side, clearly COVID impacted the yield a lot. And really it was again a May phenomena which really hurt us. So through February, as you know, things were looking better, things were going okay. And then once COVID-2 hit, the traffic really dried up, and when traffic dried up, the yield dried up too. As far as lease rentals, if you're looking at comparing it to the revenue, two things have happened. We have obviously taken delivery of new aircraft, and at the same time, our returns were impacted by COVID. So we had a number of redeliveries that were slated, but they fell short because many of the MROs were closed, and therefore our overall lease costs would be higher, yes.
Okay.
I also want to say though, but as the COVID is disappearing, the lease we are pushing out these redeliveries at a faster rate, and by the end of the year we hope to catch up again.
Okay. So historically, I believe this number is like 0.8, 0.9 rupees per ASK. Is that a fair way to look at it on a longer term basis, or will this trend up as we take deliveries of the new aircraft?
If you're comparing it to revenues, we are absolutely sure when we get back to normal revenues, the lease costs will not be a factor. Right now, clearly revenues are subdued, lease costs remain fixed, and redeliveries have slowed down. So that is the issue. Once we get back to redeliveries being pushed out, which will happen, we get to more international flying particularly, then the lease cost per revenue will be back to normal, yes.
Thank you so much.
So Kinodia, does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
The next question is from the line of Deepika Mundra from JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, and thanks for taking my question. So, firstly, on the liquidity, could you give a broad breakup of the 50 billion of liquidity for the year?
So, as I mentioned in my commentary also, we are talking to our various lenders, but we don't normally give a breakdown of our liquidity. Right now, our number is at 55 billion, which we have called out, and we'll keep enhancing it as we continue engaging with more lenders.
Okay. Secondly, on the employee cost reductions, how much was it applicable in the June quarter, or is it going to be starting from the September quarter? Also, previously, you've given a guidance for employee costs for the year. So, any similar guidance for FY22?
FY22? No, I don't think we can do that. Right now, our employee costs are down about 28%. And we have, there's no reason why that should change. It's fairly flat. But at what point we will start giving pay raises, taking back some of the pay cuts, all that will depend very much on the environment.
Sorry, you're cracking up. We can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Yes. And so last quarter, before we were hit by the second wave, you all were fairly constructive on the yield, in line with the traffic recovery. Could you give some color on that front for the next few quarters, and whatever you may have?
Excuse me, are you asking what is the color on the traffic forecast? Is that what you're asking?
You were fairly constructive on yields.
We can't hear you.
Okay, I'll join back in the queue. Thanks.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. We take the next question from the line of Arvind Sharma from Citigroup. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir, and thanks for taking my question. Sir, first question, a more structural one. Indigo is a market leader with almost 54-58% market share. But despite that, and given the cost pressures from the fuel side, the yield has been rather soft. So, do you think that as traffic comes, the yield would be at least relatively higher than other players? Or do you think the Indian market would be commoditized for a longer time and therefore the market leadership might not necessarily translate into better yield compared to competitors?
No, I mean, I think the yield pressure we're seeing right now is purely driven by COVID. So February, as I think we mentioned, we were quite optimistic. The yields were good, and I think we'll at least recover to pre-COVID levels. And then it's a question of, well, after that, can we go higher? So I don't see any permanent impairment of yield in any way at all. It's purely driven by COVID.
Sure. Thanks, sir. So just one more question on the lessor side. Given that operations have been weak, there have been restrictions on the capacity. Have there been any further negotiations with the lessors regarding the supplementary rentals or the cash rentals in terms of quantity or timelines of payment?
So as far as the lessors are concerned, we take a long-term view of this. There's a pipeline between OEMs through lessors to Indigo, and we very much cherish that pipeline. We want to keep it strong, and we look at long-term relationships. So we've had discussions with both OEMs and lessors, and to some extent they have been flexible. But we are not in a mode of we are not going to pay you, things are tough, and we'll pay you later. We're not in that mode at all. And that's not just true for lessors. Whether it's airports or oil companies, we make sure that all our bills are current. We don't have any payables built up at all.
Great, sir. That's great to know. Sir, if I could just ask a very small data question. In the new accounting norms, the lease rentals are divided into finance cost and depreciation. Could you share that number? How much is in the finance cost? How much is in depreciation?
No, we don't share that number.
No problem, sir. Thank you so much for taking my question.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Aditya Makharia from HDFC. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Maybe a little bit of a larger picture question. The corporate or the business travel will come back at some point of time. But what are the trends you are seeing? Maybe you could talk about July or generally how you've seen it. And how do you see this particular segment evolving? That's my first question.
I'll ask Sanjay Kumar to answer that question. Go ahead, Sanjay.
In terms of the corporate business, we had seen a recovery of almost 50% until about February and March before the second wave hit. And after that, of course, there have been downturn of the business. But what we saw was certain industries like manufacturing, infrastructure, pharma, banking, oil and gas, they kind of saw better recovery compared to some of the IT, consulting, and professional services industry. So what we are hoping is, as the COVID wave, second wave is coming down, we will be seeing the recovery in these sectors once again, which will kind of be close to about 40 to 50%. And IT and consulting, these kind of industries might take a little longer than what we can expect in certain part of the industry. So we'll see gradual recovery in next few quarters, I guess.
Sure. And how do you just see the work from home, let's say pre-COVID corporate travel was on a base of 100, once things normalize because of things like work from home, do you see, a more realistic level at maybe 70 or 80? I mean, any thoughts you could just share?
So I think we've shared before, and I don't think our numbers have changed. Corporate used to be 20% of our travel, and then it shrunk to about 7-8%. And our best guess is it'll stabilize at about 13-14%. So it won't recover to 20, but it'll probably hold at about 13-14%.
Okay, got you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anshuman Deb from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. My first question is regarding the debt number. If you can share the debt number ex finance lease and ex capital lease obligations?
So we 259.3 billion of capitalized operating lease and a total debt of 316.9 billion rupees.
So 369 minus 270 would be roughly the kind of normal debt.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is regarding QIP. So, if you could tell us, what is the delay in QIP? Because the way we look at the way we see it, like the big cash arbitrage that we had in term with our peers is now shrinking in the sense that they are in deeper debt, but we are also losing very valuable cash. So, to bolster QIP could be an important step in bolstering our balance sheet. So, I just wanted to understand the timelines and the possible reasons for the delay.
Okay, so I'll just make one statement on QIP, and I don't think we're in a position to take further questions on this issue at this time. So here's the statement I'll make. Given the current cash position of the company, we continue to evaluate timing and size of any QIP. Full stop.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Achal Kumar from HSBC. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my question. I had two questions, if I may. First of all, so you mentioned that July revenue is almost similar to April. So does that mean your profitability, if you look at the profitability level, it's going to be worse than April because fuel price itself is almost 20% worse than April, and then of course all the other employee cost and all looks like slightly higher. So do you think in terms of profitability, the July looks like worse than April? That is my first question. And secondly, in terms of advance sale, how do you see? So how do we expect your working capital to play out in case your advance sale is not as good as it used to be? So how do we look at the advance sale in terms of and working capital? Thanks.
Okay, so let me talk about how revenue is shaping up. As I said, it's a very, very volatile environment. We get periods in which we are quite optimistic, then we go to pessimistic, then we become optimistic again, and all within a very, very short period of time, very compressed cycles. And it's really all driven by the COVID numbers. If you want to know what's going to happen to our revenues, if you just track the COVID numbers, you'll get a very good sense of it. So May was, I don't know how to say what's the right adjective. It was distressing in terms of how quickly the revenue shrunk. But that again was, remember, at the 400,000 levels of infections per day. Now we are at 39,000 infections per day. So of course the revenue is improving, and therefore I don't think we should say, okay, last quarter it was this, and therefore next quarter it will be similar. We are the quarter which will be sort of June, July, August, definitely shaping up to be better in terms of the revenue numbers. Now our forward bookings are picking up, but they're not as strong as they were back in February. Again, all based on COVID. So we have reasonable optimism for the quarter relative sequentially. But again, if tomorrow COVID-3 hits and the cases spike, within a week will change our tune. So it's very, very volatile in that sense.
But then why you want to fly more? So you initially commented that because your oil price is high, and that's why despite flying more capacity, your losses are higher than last quarter. Last year. So what will make you to confident that your losses will come down if you fly more, despite having such a high fuel price and low yields?
Yeah. So we watched that number very, very carefully. And you're right. It's very much a balancing game of how much capacity we should put into the market. And we are not doing any long-term planning at all. It's almost like, okay, next week, what should we do? And our goal is to make sure that we are always covering our fixed costs. And we've said before, I think that our fixed costs are in the range of 45 to 50%, and as long as we can cover that, we should be willing to put capacity out in the market. But that number also changes depending on the yield. If the yield is low, that 45% becomes higher. So we are watching all this carefully, and we're trying to make sure that no matter what we do, we are cash positive and we're always contributing towards fixed costs.
Okay. Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Aditya Mongia from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. I have two questions.
Mr. Mongia, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we are unable to hear you well, sir.
Can you hear me well now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So thanks for the opportunity. I had two questions, and both of them actually were on yield. I wanted to get a sense. You gave a sense of the revenue number on a monthly basis. It will help if you could give us a similar kind of number for yields on a monthly basis, because as you pointed out, one should kind of take out May out of the equation then see.
I'm not sure that'll be particularly helpful to you, frankly. We're giving you the overall revenue number, and that's what's important. And that's a combination of load factor and yield. So now if I tell you a yield number, you'll say, what's the load factor, what's the capacity, how much are you flying? So, you'll ask three more questions, whereas the real important issue is how much revenue are you generating? However we get there. We can get to revenue through capacity, we can get to revenue through yield, we can get to revenue and load factors. So the final product is how much revenue. And normally we don't share monthly data, but we thought this year in particular, it was important to share that, which is why we've given you the revenue number.
Got that, Rono. The second question that I had was, so the context is the declining share of business travel or corporate travel as you think it would happen over time versus pre-COVID level. So the question I wanted to ask is that does that have any impact, or should it have an impact on the overall yields that the company would be able to earn, because certain passengers who would book closer to the date of travel would be lesser in number? And if so, are there means and ways of probably managing the situations that yields are not impacted?
So this is a mixed bag. So all our bookings are closer in now. Before we used to have 60-day bookings, 30-day bookings, and part of the challenge during this May decline was, hey, the bookings are happening in the last 5 days. And some of those bookings are happening at quite high yield. So there was a big spread between corporate travel and retail travel, if you will, before, because part of it was also age of booking. Now that everything is compressed, the yield difference between business and retail has also been compressed. So that's the good news. Also, as we've said, travel in India is among the the lowest yielding in the world. So there's not much room for yields to go any lower. They can only inch up slowly. And then we're talking of India growth story and the middle income. So I like to say in a very emphatic way that yes, COVID is a big crisis, no question. But it is a short-term crisis. And we don't want to lose sight of the longer-term picture. Otherwise, we sort of lose the script. And the longer-term picture is the India story remains strong. I mean, you look around, look at other industries, the India story is very much there. The middle-income growth story is very much there. So while, yes, oh my God, what happened next quarter and the quarter after that is all very important. When we look at the long term, we're saying, listen, let's just keep the cash level managed. Let's run a really good airline. Let's really focus on the quality. And then let's make sure our fleet is efficient, that we get rid of the fuel inefficient planes, that we've got the right size of the fleet, and focus on the longer term. And the longer term picture, I have to tell you, is a table thumping great story. And we're not losing sight of that.
Got that, Rono. Those are my questions. Thanks for your answers. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Chintan Seth from Sameeksha Capital. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. One question is on the capacity side. If you can highlight what can we expect for the coming quarter and this year, given we are not outlining the guidance in the press releases, but if you can give some color, how are we looking at it that way, if you can.
So broadly speaking, we are at 65% of pre-COVID capacity. That's dictated by the ministry. That's where we are today. We have solicited a higher level of capacity, as have a couple of other airlines. Now, just because the capacity is there, we're not going to fly. It's not like the government says, okay, you can go to 100 with it, we go to 100%. Of course not. So we will be dictated by, again, the break-even load factors that we see in the market. And the break-even load factors will be very much driven by the yield, which again will be very much driven by COVID. So we'd like the government to do away with these caps because we don't think they make sense. It's up to us to decide how much to fly. But once those caps are removed or even relaxed, we will fly judiciously. So we're not here to lose money. And therefore, we'll put in capacity slowly and in a measured way so as to make sure we are always above break-even load factors.
Sure. And on the expenses side, the run rate we should look at on the employees and the rentals should be similar to these numbers, at least on the fixed side?
For which period you're talking about?
For the upcoming quarters?
For the upcoming quarter. Lease costs, roughly the same, I would say. We get some new airplanes in, we push some old airplanes out, and the lease cost should remain roughly the same, yeah.
Sure. And lastly, the timeline of retiring all the CEOs will be December 22, right? For the remaining...
Wolfgang will take that question.
Only is operational?
No, CEOs, when will they get returned?
Okay. So CEOs will be all returned in about 2 years. And all CEOs will be out and will be by Q1. And that's our plan. And there might be some CEOs left, but not very many, I have to say. And you also see that the lease return, after COVID crisis was there until end of last quarter. Now we see the whole situation stabilizing, and Emirates have started working again. So we see good that, as Roman has mentioned, will be a catch-up situation on the lease returns. It will also help us to bring our lease costs stabilized.
And again, while we have been slower than planned, we've still been returning the CEOs at quite a good pace. And as we do that, both our lease costs will come down and our maintenance costs come down, which is the other good thing.
True. That's all from my end. Thanks and all the very best. Thank you.
Yeah, let me also clarify here, the CEOs largely by December 22 have the one transit out. To modernize
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Joseph George from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Hello. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Rono. So I have two questions. The first part of the question was in relation to the capacity guidance. So in your opening comments, you mentioned that by 4Q, your capacity would hit the pre-COVID levels. So what I wanted to understand was, when you refer to pre-COVID, are you talking about pre-COVID domestic capacity or pre-COVID overall capacity?
No, pre-COVID domestic, yes. Thank you for clarifying. International, as we know, there is no vision as to when the whole thing is going to get opened up. So we are talking domestic capacity, absolutely.
Sure. And so if your exit rate is going to be, at pre-COVID, it obviously means that the whole of FY23 you expect to be, better than pre-COVID in terms of overall capacity. Would that be a right statement to make?
Absolutely. Look, we have a stable of fuel-efficient new aircraft just waiting, okay? I just need the flag to come down that COVID's gone and life is coming back to normal. Those airplanes will take off like a shot. So I'm very anxious to keep adding capacity every chance we get. And by 23, of course. I don't think anyone would say 23, the COVID is still around.
Perfect. Thank you. The second question that I had was in relation to your balance sheet. So, when I look at the FY21 balance sheet, the net worth that you had was about 1.1 billion rupees positive. And with a loss of, 32 billion rupees in 1Q, it's quite obvious that the net worth has turned negative. So in that context, I had two questions. One is, does a negative net worth impact the terms of your lease agreements, maybe existing or future, with respect to the, implied lease rentals because of the perceived risk going up? Is there any such issue to be worried about?
None whatsoever. And as we said before, one of the relationships that we prize and that is very solid is this IndiGo to lessor to OEM relationship. And we have placed all our contracts with the lessors go over the number of years. We don't place these aircraft close in. They are placed well in advance, and we see no softening of that market from our standpoint.
Perfect. Thank you.
If anything, I think in the lessor's eyes, IndiGo has become an even better risk, if you will, from that standpoint. I mean, they see what's happening around everywhere else, and they look at IndiGo, and then we just are blue chip in that sense. So our pricing will only improve, not get worse.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Rono.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashish Shah from Centrum Broking. Please go ahead. Mr. Ashish Shah, you may please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, sorry. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry for the earlier thing. Okay, so my first question is that in terms of our lease, are these all fixed rate leases or variable rate leases? So if tomorrow if the overall borrowing rates were to go up, would our leasing cost also go up?
Absolutely not. These are long-term contracts.
Okay, so they're not susceptible to the increase which happens in the
other way. When things were tough, we didn't reduce the rates. So again, that's the relationship. We're not looking at transactions. We're looking at relationship.
Right. Fair enough. Okay. Secondly, there has been a lot of questions around the yields. My one point is that when the DGCA comes and says, or the ministry comes and says that we are increasing the floor of the fares by an X amount, does that reflect into the yields that you get in the market? Or, somehow while the ministry dictates certain terms, but in practice, in commercial terms, you do not see that yield going up in the market?
I'll hand the question back to Sanjay Kumar.
So obviously, there is a reflection of the fare revision by the DGCA in our yields from time to time. As and when the fares have been kind of revised upward, there has been some kind of impact on the overall yield. But just to kind of capture this, everything is largely dependent on the overall demand environment, and as the demand environment improves, obviously it will result in better kind of load factor as well as revenue situation. So overall, it does affect to some extent, but until the demand environment improves, we will continue to see some pressure on the yield. Thank you.
Got it. Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the answers.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Achal Kumar from HSBC. Please go ahead.
Oh, hi. Thanks. I got the second chance. Sorry. So just want to understand about the situation with the engines. I think you ordered some of the CFM engines. So what is the status? When are you going to receive it? And what is the kind of how are you planning to finance those engines, please?
How to finance the engines?
Yeah.
So wait, I mean, this is all part of the lease cost, lease arrangement that we have with the lessor, right? So we pay the engine manufacturers, but finally that whole engine and the aircraft goes to the lessor, and they pay for and we pay the monthly rent, of course.
Mm-hmm. And what is the status of that?
I'm not sure I understood your question. Did I answer it correctly?
No, that's fine. I basically, moreover, I just want to understand what is the status. I mean, when are you going to receive those engines, and how that fits in your overall fleet?
You're talking about the CFM engine, the LEAP engine coming in? Is that what you're asking?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, the LEAP engine delivery has just started a couple of months ago, and right now majority of our neos are naturally this EW engine. Now the LEAP engine has started, and we expect also to get all the approvals as we have for Pratt now on EDTO in the extended range operations. So it started, and so far I have to say our experience with the LEAP engine was very good.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir, does that answer your question?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, last one, if I may. So now, how confident are you in terms of reaching back at the February 21 traffic levels in the quarter to December, which you were quite confident last time, and you said that you believe that you'll reach at that level during the last quarter. Now, of course, the traffic has recovered, but from here on, we are at almost like 160,000 passengers to reach 320,000, so it's just double. How confident are you?
Okay, so like I said, it is a very volatile environment. Back in February, I remember how optimistic we were. We were forecasting a profit at some point very close, and we were like, oh, so by this month we should make money, etc. Then the bottom fell out with COVID too. And May, the numbers were so bad, it's like, oh my God, can it go any lower than this? It was that bad. Okay, then we get this periods of improvement, stall, improvement. Now, what causes this improvement and stall? It's really driven by the narrative in the marketplace. So when the COVID numbers are down, we get a sudden surge. Then there's talk of a Delta variant, a UK variant, a third wave is coming, wear double mask, and we immediately see the numbers stall again. So it's very volatile. So anything I tell you, you have to say that it's behind the background is what is happening to COVID. Now, assuming COVID behaves, and that the third wave comes but is relatively flat because of vaccination, this is our best guess scenario with all the caveats that I put in there about COVID and third wave and so forth. Our best guess scenario is that by December, we should be back to about February and back to almost pre-COVID levels for domestic only. International will still be slow, but domestic we should get back to December. So we've got a build-up that we're seeing, and obviously we're projecting it based on what we're seeing in July, what we're seeing in August, what the medical profession is saying about COVID. With all that, and with all the caveats, and forecasting is a dangerous game in these very volatile times. But with all those caveats, yes, we think by December we should be back to 100% of pre-COVID levels.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking again the questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Chintan Seth from Samiksha Capital. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the follow-up opportunity. One question I wanted to understand on the demand coming from, which segment, if you can, whatever demand we are seeing right now, metro to metro, or we are still seeing, more tier 2 travelers picking up your space, your capacity currently. Yeah.
So let me try. What were the different waves that came through on the revenue side?
Yeah. Yes.
Immediately after we opened up, it was a metro to non-metro and one-way traffic. And as you know, it was mostly migrant labor, all of that, and it was well advertised in the press, places like Patna, Ranchi, so huge spikes, but one-way spikes. Okay, so that was the first wave. Then we saw that slowly becoming a two-way spike as people started returning to their work. But metro to metro also remained weak. Not also, metro to metro continued to remain weak. So metro to non-metro, our capacity actually went from 47% to 65% because it was strong growth in demand. Whereas metro to metro, we reduced capacity from about 25 to 20% of capacity. However, now with this build up in revenue, we're seeing metro to metro also coming back. And that makes us feel better because it's more of a balanced growth. It's no longer one way, it's two-way to non-metro, and metro to metro is also coming back.
That's interesting. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference back to the management for closing comments.
Okay, so we've all been together now for 4 quarters. 4 quarters of very challenging times. And we started by saying that our goal during this pandemic is to come out stronger than we went in. So the question is, we should look at ourselves now and say, are we delivering on that promise? And I will point to the following factors. When we say we're going to be better, better at what? How do you know we are better? Well, let's look at the customer-facing issues first. In terms of quality of flying, we've never run a better airline, and we are as good as the best in the world. We're not just saying in India. If you look at our OTP numbers on time, we are the 3rd punctual in the world. If you look at our customer complaint ratios, they've gone way down. 0.1 versus 1.0 for the rest of the industry. If you look at our NPS, they're way up. So everything from the customer facing says, yes, IndiGo has got better. Then look at our underlying structure. And our structure, the 2 most important things are our fleet and our employees. Our fleet is the most fuel efficient we've ever been. We're becoming more fuel efficient with time. We have this wonderful animal called the A321. We have the XLRs on order. So our fleet is quite a remarkable fleet, I would say. You can look around the world and you can ask yourself, who has a fleet like this that is this young, this fuel efficient, and this much growth built into it? Our other pillar, as I said, is from fleet is employees. So take a temperature of our employees. We've gone through very tough times together. We've taken pay cuts, we've taken layoffs, and yet the employee morale is remarkably high. People are engaged, people are enthusiastic, people love IndiGo. Our employees do. And you can see that in the Great Place to Work. All this has happened only recently. And then I look around and say, what is happening to each division? So I told each division, I want you to be the best in the industry. IT, you be the best IT in the industry. HR, you be the best HR in the industry. Even legal, be the best legal that you can be. And then look what happens. We are among the top 15 in-house legal firms in Asia. Look at HR. We keep getting award after award for management of HR. So all of that speaks to, yes, our employee structure is also strong. Then let's look at our brand. We used to be the 53rd most valuable brand. We are now the 32nd, I think, or 33rd most valuable brand. And just know that ahead of us are mostly multinationals. Is the Googles and the American Express and the Nestle. Well, we have a hard time dislodging them. But if you look at Indian brands, we're the 7th most valuable Indian brand. Then you look at our market position. Every major city, and I'm not just talking about 6 metros, I'm going down. Most major cities, we have a remarkable market position. And then we have position in all the smaller towns and cities of the country. And places like Leh, okay, we didn't fly there. Now we are flying in the middle of the pandemic. Places like Aizawl, places like Bareilly. We are opening stations even in the middle of the pandemic. So I look at this list and I say, is IndiGo emerging stronger from the crisis than when we entered? And I say, hell yes. Of course, we've lost money, and I'm not promising we'll make money next quarter or anything like that. Short-term losses are there. But long-term structure, IndiGo is emerging much stronger than IndiGo went into this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of IndiGo, that concludes this conference. Thank you all for joining. You may now disconnect your lines.